Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down the main card of UFC 251, Kamaru Usman vs Jorge Masvidal, making my verdict predictions, and also be throwing a few tips out there. Just to quickly recap the last event, Dan Hooker vs Dustin Poirier, feels like forever ago, but I went 5 of 7 on verdict picks, gained 3,955 XP on verdict and got a silver badge there in the top 40%. From the 3 legs in the multi Per Annum, we went 2-1, pretty close there. Maurice Green by points, probably going to lose a points fight anyway before the finish. But we hit the undercard value picking Karma Worthy at $3.30, and yeah, I like that pick. There was lots of late mail on verdict with the updated main card, Lins and Boza, Sato and Witt. I'll start with those. Lins got slept, not much fight data to work with, and kind of same sort of story with the Sato fight, but he looked really good for as long as it lasted. To Sean Woodson, he looked good as well for about 4 minutes. He faded towards the end of the first, and as soon as that happened, he stopped using his kicks, stopped using his knees, and yeah, stopped moving his feet. Let Rosa back him up. Didn't circle out, tried to move his head, but it was just ducking into knees and reads for uppercuts off of Rosa. I gave Julian little chance to win that fight, and he was probably going to win a decision without that finish anyway. Kyle Dorcas, Brendan Allen. Dorcas held his own, striking looked nice. I did have Allen by that second round knockout. I thought it was on when he dropped him with that knee, but Kyle survived. It was an awesome grappling exchange. There was some awesome grappling exchanges, and it was a fun fight to watch. Jan Vellante looked absolutely horrible at heavyweight, but he was likely going to outpoint Mo to a decision without that late finish. Maurice did show heart to survive that barrage by Jan and then choke him out, but he also looked terrible as well. Mike Perry went the wrestling route, unorthodox, but that's his style, I suppose. He did carry the power advantage, and he just looked better everywhere. I couldn't look past the KO. I thought he was going to knock out a goal for sure, but winning a decision in that fashion might have been twice as impressive, to be honest. And then the main event, Poirier vs Hooker, lived up to all the hype. Absolute slugfest. Too much happened to break it all down, but as I highlighted in my analysis, the championship round conditioning and kind of just that champ mentality of Dustin got him over the line, which was my best pick, the diamond by decision. Sad for Dan. He showed his toughness though again, especially when he was in the arm bar. I heard him scream out through the mic. It just sounded horrible, but didn't tap, and I'm sure he'll be back better than ever. Okay, so Fight Island UFC 251 to the bottom of the main card. We've got Amanda Ribas on verdict paying 1.54 times, and Paige VanZandt, the underdog, paying 2.84 times. Ribas is 3-0 in the UFC and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Paige VanZandt is 5-3 in the UFC and 2-3 in her last 5. In my opinion, Ribas is better wherever this fight takes place. In her three UFC fights to date so far, she's shown us everything. Fluent striking, versatile attacks, including spinning kicks, a strong clinch game, capable takedowns, dangerous jiu-jitsu, and then also great durability and a great gas tank. She's got great cardio. She's not afraid to go to the ground. She took Marcos and Dern down multiple times in her last 2 fights, controlled ground exchanges for the most part. They're both really, really dangerous BJJ practitioners. She's also a volume girl, over 200 strikes in her last 2 fights. And then she doesn't really get hit as well. She's got great striking defense at 74%. Her one loss on her record is a knockout to Poliana Viana, but in my opinion, she takes a shot really well. She ate a few big shots from Marcos, elbows out of the clinch, and she just ate them. She didn't react poorly to them at all, so I'm not worried about that. She loves to be the one leading the dance and pressuring, and that is going to be a factor here. Paige is far too comfy backing up, and that essentially leads to her poor defensive ability. 43% striking defense, 35% takedown defense. It's just not good. She does charge forward, with blitz attacks, Superman punches, and switch kicks like the one that KO'd Beck Rawlings. But when she comes forward, her chin's always up. And, that just leaves herself so vulnerable to straight counters that Ribas just loves to throw. To give Paige some credit, she's a solid fighter. She's got a well-rounded offensive skill set, and she is tough. She's super difficult to finish. 2 of her 4 losses are via submission. But I still think she's tough to finish. Rose got her in the 5th round, but she literally had her back in every other round. And in the 3rd, I think it was, she had her in an armbar, horribly hyperextended it. but Paige didn't tap. She is tough. And also Rose split her so bad in the first round. She was leaking blood the whole fight and fought through that, to get all the way into the 20-minute plus range. So yeah, I've got to give credit where credit's due for Paige, but I will be taking Amanda. I like the fact she's moving to 125. She won't be undersized, and it could account for any kind of weight cut abnormalities with the weird time zones and scenario that's going to be going on in Abu Dhabi. I do think she gets the decision, but 2.2 times on verdict right now is too short for me. So I'm actually going to hunt some value with the TKO at 12.89 times. I think Paige's defensive weaknesses are going to be too large. Hebus will be in control for the majority of the fight. And, I can see Amanda having Paige in some really compromising submission positions. But like I mentioned, I think Paige's toughness will help her survive and go the path of least resistance. I think Hebus will be good enough on the ground just to slide to mount, slice her up with some elbows and force a stoppage. So yeah, that's my pick with that one. Going along to Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. Andrade, the considerable underdog here at 5.94 times, and Rose coming back at 1.2 times. Andrade, very experienced in the UFC, 11-5 and 4-1 in her last 5. Namajunas, 6-3 in the UFC and 3-2 in her last 5. It's a tough fight to call. We haven't seen Rose since their first bout, and the only data we have since then for Andrade is her getting absolutely steamrolled by Weili. So, not too much to go off. It's difficult to know what adjustments will be made from the first fight, but if you go through history, Rose has shown evolution throughout her career. In my opinion now, she's adopting more of a Joanna type fight style with fewer kicks, probably, but better jiu-jitsu. And I think she'll just present a more polished version of this. She leans on her jab, it's quick, it's damaging, and it's the best weapon for her to use her length advantage at 115. Also helps her gauge distance and counter short fighters with her check left hook when they're trying to enter and close the distance. She's extremely good defensively. I'd almost liken her to kind of Garbrandt with the footwork and being really light on her feet and moving laterally. And then, then she's also comfy where the fight can take place in other scenarios. Comfy in the clinch, solid takedowns herself. And then, she's got a very dangerous submission ground game. She uses it as a weapon or a threat to reverse positions if she finds herself on the back or in a position she wouldn't like to be. I've seen her roll across the armbar Americana trying to take the back. She does this really sneaky thing where she works her outside leg from the bottom into almost a hook position to try and climb the back. It's very tricky, very sneaky. I don't see many people doing it. And yeah, I rate her ground game quite highly, obviously. To Andrade, more of a bullish type fighter. She'll stand in your face, walk you down, but she's just not reliable defensively. She stands heavy, no footwork, minimal head movement, and that's what we saw in the first fight and why she was getting pieced up so badly. So what changes can she make from that first fight? More leg kicks to kind of slow Rose's movement, sure. She can get inside and initiate the clinch or takedown game. She likely should. The leg kick adaptation could play a factor, but I think with Rose's speed advantage, the straight right counter to that will be on all night. So I think Andrade will probably go the takedown route. But in my opinion, I don't think she's any safer there anyway. Like, Rose's overzealous efforts for the sub game is what got her KO'd in the first fight, essentially, getting dropped on her head and knocked out with a throw. But I don't think she will try to restrain her offensive capabilities when it comes to grappling. That history, that last fight, Rose might play the game a little more defensively in positions and scenarios where Andrade has the power to do those things, to throw her, to land her on her head. But I don't think that Rose is going to go away from being offensive with a submission game when she's on her back, or in those positions, like I was saying before, when she uses subs to reverse position. So to my pick, the easy call would be Rose via a decision. It's only a 3-round fight. The blueprint's been laid out from the first fight to outpoint Jessica on the feet, but I'm just not going to take that. I think that Andrade just can't make the defensive adjustments to stand comfortably with Rose, and she'll be forced to kind of go the takedown route within her game plan. But I'm going to back Rose to finish her with a sub, either from the bottom or, reverse positions and sub her from the top. I also don't mind the fact that Rose could come out and kind of show development in another facet of her game and take Andrade down and look for her finish of her own. And either way, the decision is at a 2.12 times multiplier on verdict, and the sub's at 13.76, so it's at odds I'm willing to take the risk on. It's hard to make a play on the round, but I'm going to back back row's in the first. You know, if Royce wants to come out and show that development of another part of her game, I think she'll do it early. And then if Andrade is getting pieced up on the feet, as I expect, she will also aim to get things on the mat relatively quickly as well, I believe. So yeah, that's a bit of reasoning for my round choice. Going to the first title fight of 3 of this UFC main event, we've got Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo. Petr Yan is 1.51 times currently on verdict, and Aldo is 2.98 times. Yan 6-0 in the UFC and 5-0 in his last 5. Aldo is 10-5 in the UFC and 2-3 in the last 5 in his last 5 fights. So looking at it on a whole, 2 amazing strikers. Yan, one of the best boxers at 135 probably in the world, and Aldo, long time considered one of the best featherweight strikers ever. Yan, for the most part, is a pressure fighter, pushes forward with that high guard, loves to transition through stances and throw a variety of attacks. You know, he's got good knees, he's got a good left high kick. He also goes to the legs frequently, and he's got big power, especially that left hook. I feel like that's his favourite weapon. He's super durable, happy to take one to give one, and his conditioning is really good. He's fought 5 rounds twice before, going 1-1. So yeah, the one loss on his record is a 5-round decision, but you know, he hasn't slowed in any of his 3-round UFC fights to date. So I don't think conditioning or cardio is a problem for this guy at all. He's got a good clinch game, and he's also got underrated wrestling out of that Hickman brother regime down at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. I will talk about that a bit more in the next fight though. Yeah, so going to Aldo, absolute beast. He's only lost to previous or current champions, with the exception of Marlon Moraes, which I did score 30-27 for Aldo, mind you. His cut to 135 seemed fine. I'm glad we've seen a fight at bantamweight out of him before this. He did look a little drawn out at the weigh-ins, but he made the limit fine, and he performed great in my opinion. You know, going to his skill set, superb head movement, and although he can be a little slow to react with his feet, his slips and evasiveness from the trunk up is really top class. He can be wild with his hands at times, but his best weapon is the digging left hook to the body. He set up so many finishes with that shot, including that Stevens and Moicano TKOs, and you know, he landed it plenty of times on Moraes as well. Lots of people have been saying he's gone away from his patented leg kicks or kick heavy attack in recent years, but that threat's always there, and you know, he does have some of the most debilitating leg kicks in the game. To this fight, how I think it's going to play out, I think Yan will probably take the center and look to push the pace, but you know, given Aldo's ability defensively and with head movement, I don't mind his chances of winning a fight backing up. In terms of strikes thrown, I think that these two will trade leg kicks throughout the fight. I feel Yan's give one, take one mentality will actually draw that ferociousness out of Jose again, draw out that kick heavy attack, and you know, Yan doesn't respond well to the outside calf kick. You just got to look at the Jimmy Rivera fight. Yes, he switches stances naturally, but he was forced to kind of go in and out of orthodox southpaw, and no one likes that leg kick, but some people can take it better, and he wasn't taking it well at all, and I hope Jose gives that fight a watch and takes that into consideration, because it's a great technique to take out Yan's base and therefore his source of power. Being such a powerful guy, taking away his axis of rotation, he's going to go a long way to not getting knocked out. Another point that I'd like to make, if Yan is the one coming forward like I suspect, he'll hold that really high guard, and you know, it's a reason for his high defensive numbers against fighters that headhunt, but it does leave the body exposed, and that digging left hook to the body could play a major factor for Jose. You know, going to grappling, I think that Yan holds a wrestling edge, and this one could see the mat briefly, but Aldo's got 91% takedown defense, and you know, I'm just not going to take the grappling into too much consideration in this one. It will interest me if Yan goes that route though. All in all, amazing fight, but I really just don't think Aldo should be this much of an underdog. I think he can work the body and the legs well, avoid lots of Yan shots, and roll with the ones he doesn't, and win a decision in an epic bantamweight scrap. I do think Yan could also win a decision, but I feel like he would have to follow the template laid out by Volkanovski, you know, with a more volume-orientated attack, with plenty of feints and to worry Aldo out of it. And I just know Petr sits down too much on his punches, and he embraces the firefight too much to kind of execute a game plan like that and be disciplined enough to execute a game plan like that. Yeah, both guys amazing conditioning, equally motivated to win. A really tough fight to call, but Aldo at a 2.98 times underdog and a 5.43 times multiplier to win by decision at the moment. It's great value, and I'll be taking that. Co-main event time, Alexander Volkanovski at 2.01 times versus Max Holloway at 1.98 times. Volk's 8-0 in the UFC, 5-0 in his last 5, and Holloway is 17-5 in the UFC and 3-2 in his last 5. I won't talk about these guys' individual skill sets too much. You know, we know Holloway has some of the cleanest boxing combos, great footwork. He's got some of the best boxing and footwork in the game. And Volk's a pressure guy, feint heavy offense, targets all areas of the body, and has underrated wrestling. To their first fight, it makes sense to kind of go back and break that down. Leg kicks obviously played a huge factor. They restricted Max's movement, but it wasn't just that. Lots of people just talk about the leg kicks, but Volk just didn't let Max get off his combos. Because Max loves to just march forward, and it's where he gets off his kind of combinations, and long-winded combinations the best and inflicts the most damage. But whenever Max tried to pressure Volk back, he might have taken a step or two towards the cage, but then he'd plant his feet and he'd counter. He wouldn't let Max keep him at the end of his range, at the end of his jab, and it nullified his crisp combos. The only time in the fight that Max managed to get any of that rhythm going was in the 4th round, and in my opinion was by far his best round of the fight. So you look at that fight and you go, what adjustments can Max make? You can check leg kicks for sure, but he also should be practicing how to move around Volk and pepper combos rather than move forward, because when he was moving forward he was just ending up getting caught in the pocket, and with a much more powerful guy in Volk, it's not a wise decision. I'd also hope that Max has been practicing his offense moving backwards, as we know Alex loves to come forward and has the conditioning to do that for a full 25 minutes. So Max has to practice not being first and not being the one controlling the pace, because it's probably not how it's going to go down. The beauty for Alex is the fact that he won the first fight. He now has the benefit of being a step ahead. Whilst Holloway is reflecting on that previous fight, trying to make adjustments to counter what Volk troubled him with in that first fight, which was mainly the leg kicks and resistance to Max's forward pressure, Volk will be spending the time refining other parts of his craft to use in this fight. And we see that with the best champs, constant evolution, not showing us the same fighter twice. And my call for this fight is that Volk is going to try and wrestle Holloway much more. Holloway has great takedown defense, and in their grappling exchange in their first fight, he managed to fight for underhooks and avoid the takedown in the very few kind of scenarios that presented themselves. But to me, Volk was more initiating those grappling exchanges to keep Max guessing and just show him another look, and wasn't actually going for them because he was having just so much success on the feet. So like I mentioned in the previous fight, Petr again, the Hickman brother wrestling regime at Tiger Muay Thai, it honestly isn't credited enough. They really drew those boys out there. And although Volk obviously couldn't get to Thailand for camp this time with COVID, those wrestling skills are still well and truly in his toolkit, in his ability, and his wrestling is underrated. And all in all, I just think Volk is a terrible matchup for Holloway. And I think he will use in combination those tools from the first fight, such as the leg kicks, relentless forward pressure, and resistance to Holloway's forward pressure. I believe he's going to wrestle Holloway in this one and really impress everybody with his ability to evolve and ability to be that one step ahead of such a highly regarded opponent in Max. So going to my verdict pick, Volk's been saying he wants to finish Holloway, and you can't read into that too much, as every fighter says that. Every fighter says they want to finish their opponent. But I genuinely think Volk has the ability and the power to do so. In my opinion, my prediction, I think Holloway is going to get controlled on the ground for portions of this fight, large portions of this fight, and I feel like he's going to get caught up in his head trying to defend the takedowns, and it's going to just set up the hands and set up a big, powerful overhand right that will put him down. And I think Volk is going to finish him with ground and pound. I'm being very specific, and I could obviously be wrong. Max is super durable, but I honestly fancy the chances, and at 8.48 times on verdict at the moment, I'll be taking it. I'll also be playing the 3rd round. I think that gives enough time for Max to be seriously caught up in the takedown threat, and I also think that Max always looks better as the fight goes on. Those championship rounds, he can get into rhythm if Volk is kind of throwing him off for those first 3, he can maybe figure him out as the fight goes on. So I like the chances of that 3rd round knockout. and I'll be playing that. Okay, to the final fight of the card, the main event, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Usman's at 1.91 times currently, and Masvidal is at 2.1 times. Usman 11-0 in the UFC and 5-0 in his last 5. Masvidal 12-6 in the UFC and 3-2 in his last 5. What a main event, you know. Masvidal stepping up on short notice here, and if anybody in the UFC could steal a strap in these conditions, it's Jorge. You know, he's such a legit fighter. And in terms of it being late notice, I'm sure he's always hitting something or someone and staying in relative shape. You know, I don't think he's going to come in totally underprepared. As for his skill set, he's a really powerful kickboxer. He really turns the hip over on his kicks and generates plenty of power. And he targets all areas of the body, you know. Especially in his recent fights, you only have to look through those. You can see the leg kicks hampering Till's movement throughout that fight before the knockout, and then also the head kick that dropped Nate, and an accumulation of damage that he poured on Diaz. So impressive. And then obviously with his hands, his speed. He's probably one of the fastest guys at 170, and he fights comfortably at all ranges. He backs his speed. You know, I'm talking speed with his hands and then speed with his movement to enter and close distance, because he is undersized. He's undersized for the welterweight division, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a factor, you know, because he's been fighting at welterweight and fighting big guys at welterweight. Till, one of the biggest guys to make 170 probably, and he had no problem closing distance and dealing with that kind of troublesome frame that Till presented. So yeah, his speed, versatility, adaptability to slip punches and counter powerfully whilst moving his feet. You know, he doesn't have a stable base, not throwing down, sitting on his punches, and he can still generate so much power while he's moving forward. It's very underrated. He's honestly such a good striker. But then, you know, it's Usman. Usman isn't basic on the feet either. He does hit hard, throws kicks up the middle, which is going to be a good attack to try and deter Masvidal from those blitz attacks straight down the middle. But, you know, Masvidal obviously still carries a striking advantage. So you've got to look at the other facet of this MMA fight, the wrestling. Yep, Masvidal's takedown defense, decent on paper, but he has been taken to the mat by plenty of guys in his career before, you know, including some relatively low-level wrestling-type credentialed guys. Ross Pearson, Lorenz Larkin, they both took him down, and they don't really offer much of a wrestling threat for the most part. So I think Usman definitely gets Jorge to the ground at some point, you know, and I don't doubt Masvidal does have the ability to get up, but Usman does kind of carry that same Blades-type relentlessness, Khabib-type relentlessness, and will continue to initiate the grappling for as long as this fight lasts. In terms of grappling, Usman's going to be in the most danger in that distance that he has to close before securing his arms, or securing the hands rather, around the waist or legs of Masvidal, because Masvidal could definitely time him with a knee up the middle. He has an array of attacks in his arsenal and could definitely time Usman on an entry like that. And then also in the clinch, he's going to be kind of dangerous for Usman. For the most part, Kamaru does a really good job at controlling guys, leaning heavy on them, tiring out their legs, fatiguing them, and staying safe. But, you know, if Masvidal does manage to break Kamaru's grip in those clinch scenarios, he is a wild man in there. And in the pocket, he will unleash those elbows, trying to slice Kamaru open and land some damaging shots. So that's also going to be a danger point for Kamaru. I also wanted to consider cardio. We know Usman can go a full 5 rounds, proven that he can do that boxing or wrestling. Wrestling probably more impressive, as we know it's so fatiguing. It's the most fatiguing part of MMA. And then he also showed that he has that championship level grittiness to find a finish in the 5th round against Colby after they'd boxed for a full 20 minutes prior, hitting each other with bombs. So impressive, you know. And we know Masvidal has the champ mindset as well. Super tough to break, and cardio hasn't been a problem for him either in his most recent fights. You know, Diaz, as long as that fight lasted, he looked super fresh and high volume, but he has lost the only 2 fights that he has had that span 25 minutes. And, you know, I don't necessarily think Jorge will gas out, and I do think he has the power to put Usman out, but I just know for a fact that Usman won't tire. And I also think that Kamaru is durable enough, got a good enough chin that it's going to take an accumulation of shots, a body of work out of Jorge to put him out. I'm unsure whether one shot could definitely or could just end the night like that. So yeah, to my verdict prediction, I think this will be a great fight, and the build up to the fight night will be so exciting. But I can't help going with my head on this one and choosing Usman via a decision at 2.63 times. I think Usman will face adversity, perhaps the most ever in his career, but his durability, grittiness, and skill set that favours the points fight, I think will get him over the line. And yeah, looking at Jorge, he's only been finished 3 times in his whole career, which just speaks to his toughness. But like I said, his only other 2 other 5-round fights he lost, and he lost via decision. So I think Usman will have a tough time getting him out of there, and I think he's going to take it on points, just out of his wrestling type style, and yeah, do enough on the feet. Okay. So to the bets, or my bets for this event, my multi per annum, I'd just like to run over the record at the moment. We're 1-4 from the first 5 events, still sitting in the green though by a margin. Return of investment of 35.099 units. We hit that multi 3 events ago now, I think. So we've gone back to the standard model, 4 legs in this one. We've got taken rows by submission or decision. Like I said, I think the most likely outcome is her to win a decision, but I don't mind the submission chances. We've got Aldo by decision, by far the longest odds of this multi. He's the considerable underdog. Yan's super durable. I think if Aldo wins, it's likely a decision. I'm just hoping he doesn't get outworked and outvolumed by, probably the busier Yan. I'm taking Volk to win in any mechanism. I have gone with a knockout on verdict, of course, but decision. Everyone that I'm listening to is leaning a decision in this one, or leaning it to go the distance. So a bit of safety there. And then I've got the Usman Masvidal fight to go the distance. Interesting leg. I think, given their skill sets and given Usman's skill set favouring a points fight, and I favour him to win, I think he'll go the distance. But then Masvidal could also sneak a decision win as well. And yeah, all in all, those 4 legs, $44.99. So I'll be putting a unit on that and hoping for the best. And now to my value single, or my undercard value of this event. We're 1-0 in this section with a return of investment of 2.3 units at the moment. And I'm going with Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos at $2.05 in this one. To beat Muslim Salikov. Salikov, impressive with his KO over Taleb, and he showed versatility in his last fight with the takedowns over Staropoli. But Dos Santos is a beast. He's 8-2 in the UFC. Both guys are dangerous strikers, but Dos Santos is slightly busier, and he's super durable. He's won decisions to big hitters like Omari Akhmedov and Lyman Good. The Jingliang loss is not a good look, but it just wasn't his night, and you can't forget that he won 7 straight in the UFC prior to that. And I like the fact that we've seen him since, and he come out and he won a pretty commanding decision over Alexei Konchenko, who's a pretty credentialed fighter in his own right. So pretty much I just don't think that Dos Santos should be the underdog in this one, and that's my value play for the prelims. So here I'll put up a screenshot of kind of my verdict predictions and the XP that I'm wagering. If you've stayed this far, I appreciate you listening to my breakdown. And yeah, if you want to follow me on verdict, it's at ItsTadpole. See any changes to the main event. You'll be able to see my picks on those fights. You'll be able to see how I'm scoring the fights on fight night. And also, if you want to head over to Instagram, you can follow me at its_tadpole. Pretty much just betting related content, MMA related content, verdict related content. You get the gist. And you'll be able to see some stuff when it's coming out, and just keep up to date with all of my kind of MMA goings. So yeah, I'd like to thank you again if you stayed this far, and yeah, enjoy the fight nights. I'll probably be putting up a breakdown of Kattar vs Ige a day or 2 post UFC 251, and yeah, I'll try and keep up with all these events that they're pumping out. Props to the UFC, doing heaps of events, and I can't wait for Fight Island. Catch you guys.